The men and women who aimed to supplant Mata Hari with the steady, efficient, reliable, and ever so much safer methods of science and technology began their first tentative foray into what they would always call, with a certain clinical detachment, the Russian problem, on February 1, 1943. Almost all of the codebreakers who would work over the next several years to achieve the first breaks into the labyrinth of Russian communications secrets were newcomers to the business, which made them no different from the other 13,000 new recruits, military and civilian, who would by the war's end swell the explosively growing ranks of the U.S. Army and Navy Signals Intelligence Headquarters in Washington. The variety of their backgrounds was extraordinary. Career officers and new draftees, young women, math majors just out of Smith or Vassar, partners of white-shoe New York law firms, electrical engineers from MIT, the entire ship's band from the battleship California after it was torpedoed by the Japanese in the attack on Pearl Harbor, winners of puzzle competitions, radio hobbyists, farm boys from Wisconsin, world-traveling ex-missionaries, and one of the world's foremost experts on the cuneiform tablets of ancient Assyria. In June 1943, Cecil Phillips was an 18-year-old chemistry student at the University of North Carolina who had just been rejected for the draft because of flat feet, to my great pleasure and surprise, he later admitted. With no plans for the summer, he wandered into the U.S. Employment Service office in his hometown of Asheville in the Blue Ridge Mountains to see if he could get a job. The person there told him there was a lieutenant from the Army Signal Corps over at the town post office who had a large quota of clerk positions to fill. "How would you like to go to Washington and be a cryptographer?" the lieutenant asked him. "That sounds interesting," Phillips answered. The lieutenant, clearly surprised that someone actually knew what he was talking about, blurted out, "You mean you know what that means?" Phillips did, having once owned a little Orphan Annie decoder ring, though that was about as far as his knowledge went. But it was good enough for the lieutenant, who administered him a general aptitude test on the spot, signed him up as a $1,440 a year GS2 junior clerk, and told him to report in a week to an address in Arlington, Virginia. Brought in under nearly identical circumstances was a young home economics instructor, Jean Graybeal, who was teaching high school near Lynchburg in central Virginia and dissatisfied with her job when she met a young Army officer in the post office who was looking for college graduates to go to work at an undisclosed location near Washington to do a job he could not offer any details about. The officer, an infantry lieutenant, who just days earlier had been posted with the 1st Army at Governor's Island, New York, did not know himself what the work involved. Driven largely by the need to process volumes of Japanese Army traffic that had suddenly become readable due to breakthroughs in several systems, the Army would hire 4,000 new civilian employees for its signals intelligence operation in 1943 alone. In the rush to meet such burgeoning manpower requirements, the recruiters were as green as everyone else. The lieutenant had been ordered to report to Arlington Hall on Monday, the week of Thanksgiving, in November 1942. He spent the next day filling out administrative paperwork. Wednesday, he was given a crash course on recruiting procedures, and on Thanksgiving morning he found himself at the post office in Lynchburg trying to collect warm bodies, without even having had a chance to find out what his new outfit did. Graybeal had been thinking about trying to get a job with the federal government, and asked her father what he thought of the idea. He told her she might as well go to Washington for 6 months and shuffle papers. She was off to the capital as soon as she found a replacement teacher to take over for her. Arlington Hall Junior College had been a finishing school for girls before the Army abruptly seized it under emergency war powers in June 1942. The site was convenient to the Pentagon, the colossal new Army and Navy headquarters, soon to be the largest office building in the world, which was arising on a marshy flat along the Potomac River less than 2 miles away, just across Arlington National Cemetery. The school's 100 acres also offered security and ample room for expansion. One of the Arlington Hall recruiters found a pre-war postcard of the school depicting a stately residence hall, manicured lawns, tennis courts and indoor and outdoor horseback riding arenas and stables, and shamelessly deployed it in his recruiting pitch. What the new arrivals found instead were two huge, dreary, hastily erected warehouse-like office blocks built in the traditional U.S. government style, with long corridors and a series of perpendicular wings, surrounded by barbed wire and guardhouses. Workers sat side by side at long tables arrayed in rows. Air conditioning remained a dream for the future. The buildings were sweltering in the humid Washington summers and overrun year-round with legions of rodents. There were no horses in the deserted stables, but there was a drill field and barracks for the enlisted men. The lieutenant who had paraded the pre-war postcard avoided eye contact with his recruits when he later encountered them at Arlington Hall.